Good. Well, somebody's got a sense of humour who put the running order together to bring me on after Lend-Lease and Barclay. Very amusing. How do I get? Is somebody gonna? Oh, do I? Is it gonna? Oh, now look at this. Look at this. Talk number 12. This is the excitement. The custom build and consumer engagement as a way to improve quality and sustainability. I know how you're feeling about this. I can't wait, I'm so excited. Anyway, I will talk a bit about the custom build stuff on the way through, but as always with me, it's a bit of a ramble around the kind of HAB story and I guess what we've learned. So HAB, we're a very small developer with great aspirations, and we've been dibbling around in the housing world now for 7 or 8 years. In fact, the scheme on the top there is a scheme in Swindon, and that had a couple of one-hour television programmes made about it. And that actually puts me in mind of a Tony Pidgley story. Of course, everybody has a Tony Pidgley story, but in the early days of HAB, I met up with Tony, and we had tea in some posh hotel in London. He was paying, not me. And just your thing about quality and being able to deliver quality in London. Well, we kind of chose the challenge of trying to deliver quality and sustainability and great design in places that generally don't get a lot of it. So I remember him asking me, he said, right, you're getting into the development game, are you, Mike? That's great. Where are you starting then? Where's your first scheme? And I said, Swindon. He said, bloody hell, you don't have to make things fucking difficult for yourselves. So at that stage, I thought, okay, interesting challenges ahead, but we do get faced with very different things, trying to do stuff out in the provinces and out in the suburbs, and the markets which are kind of dominated by the volume house builders, and where it's a badge of honour to refer to yourself as a box basher. So that's the world we're kind of working in. So different kind of challenges. So we did Swindon. We did the one on the top right is Applewood in Stroud, a scheme in Oxford, on the left in Oxford, which is in Cowley, and a very different one on the west side of Oxford, which is very expensive homes. And we too try and market our homes to UK citizens first. But the irony is that we found out in our limited experience, the more expensive the house, the more likely it is to be bought by somebody who lives overseas as a second home. And that just says something, I think, about the inequalities in society that we're faced with. I also live in a village where if a house comes up for sale, it's almost always bought as a second home. So affordability is a big issue, which I think the gentleman over there referred to a minute ago, and it's something that's very much on our radar on an ongoing basis. So I guess one of the things we learned going through some of these schemes is that whenever we got into a room with bigger house builders, there's always a reference to the market, the house buying market, as a kind of single entity. And it was always, well, what they want is, and what they always wanted was something of very traditional design, something where you could park at least 3 cars, something that really was, people always referred to that thing of what does a child draw? You know, that's what they want, a door and some windows, and it needs to look very ordinary. And what they're not interested in is sustainability or interesting design or community. They're not interested. And we thought, well, surely that can't be the case. But I think it was the statistic Gwyn showed that actually half of the house buying market have said, well, we wouldn't look at a new home anyway. So it had that kind of view of the market, not actually looking at people as individuals, but looking at as this agglomerated, and again Gwyn's quote, agglomerated kind of Daily Mail readership who all just wanted that kind of Middle England dream of a bog standard kind of estate designed house. So one of the things we thought, it's come up today loads of times, and I wish we would get away from this horrible word consumer, Can we not use resident or just person or people? Consumer, I have this horrible vision of a kind of Pac-Man type thing of, we're all just consuming things. I am because I consume. But they're people like you and I who are going to hopefully live enjoyable and happy lives in the houses we build. So we thought, up at Applewood there, I went in houses a few months after they'd been handed over to customers, and we put in some fitted cupboards in one house. Fitted cupboards had been ripped out because the chap had a piano and it was the only place he could put his piano. We had people changing kitchens in the first 6 months because they didn't like the kitchens. So you had skips outside new houses, and we thought, well, that's pretty unsustainable, that's pretty wasteful. And we thought, how can we give people more choice? How can we engage them? And of course, with our founder and chairman being Kevin MacLeod, we always had this kind of grand designs thing in the background. And we thought, can we incorporate some of those elements into the model so that people can sit alongside us and be part of designing their house? At the same time, the whole kind of custom and self-build thing has been pushed. We aren't out and out kind of custom builders or enablers of self-build by any means, but we are there trying to give people a better choice and engaging them in what kind of homes that they want. So I'll illustrate some of this, but I really want to kind of talk about more generally about what we do. This is one of our current development sites. This is down in a place called Kingsworthy, just outside of Winchester. And it's a rather lovely field, I think you'll agree. And you can spot the biodiversity in this field. It's here. Because this field's been in the agricultural industrial system for about 30 years, so it's been sprayed and sprayed and sprayed and sprayed and sprayed. And that's about the first third of any growing season. So we also have the need to and the desire to increase biodiversity. Well, it's a piece of what's it on a site like this, because there isn't anything living. I can tell you, if you give us a brownfield site, actually that's much more challenging. The biodiversity on a brownfield site, if you take a site out of the agricultural system in the UK, unless it's an organic or a kind of more balanced system, biodiversity is so low. So anyway, this is a little scheme on the edge of the village and came rather neatly through local plan part 2. This is you see we've trashed it now. We've like that lovely field, and that's pretty much where we're at the moment. So there's always this horrible bit, isn't there, of kind of making everything worse before you hopefully kind of make it better. So we are building away. So this was the piece of land that we negotiated the purchase of. Sorry, all the way around here. This is the existing parish park here, and we did a deal basically to double the size of the park by creating this area here, and we've got community orchard, allotments, what they call a pump track for kids, which is kind of BMX bikes, and then the rest is biodiverse parkland. The upper park is all formal recreational stuff, football pitches and so on. And then we've got 50 homes. It's an expensive area. Winchester is a real property hotspot. But we've got 20 affordable, so a full 40% affordable homes on the scheme. So we didn't entirely trust the parish council to keep that land as parkland forever. So we've also vested it in Fields in Trust, who better known as the National Playing Fields Association, who effectively will have the right of refusal to any development of that land in the past. So we kind of got double protection in a way. So there's the scheme really is pretty much hitting Code 5 in carbon and energy terms. It's a kind of fabric first approach with lots of PV. We are, for the first time here, we've just committed the expenditure of putting in a microgrid to this scheme. So we'll effectively have a community energy services company set up here. So we will have good energy, we'll provide any grid power into us, and then the community energy company will actually sell the energy on to the users. And there's quite a clever play there in terms of half-hourly energy prices. What you have to do in energy terms is avoid I think it's the 5 o'clock to 7:30 peak each evening. Electricity in that time costs you 3 times the cost of electricity at any other time of the day. So if you can avoid that peak through the use of PV and battery storage and balancing across the homes, then you can actually provide cheaper energy to people. We really value design. Our name's Happiness, Architecture, Beauty, so we believe in the power of architecture and the design process. And we have to sell our houses, so we don't do stuff that's too scary. Houses mustn't scare the horses. You know, the house buying public is relatively conservative. It's not as conservative as some of the major house builders would have you believe. So it's unashamedly contemporary. We should be creating great things in the 21st century, not just aping what's happened in the past. And you can see the number of different designs that we'll deliver through the scheme. You can see roof integrated PV, not complete roof like Bill's on his house here, but it's flush and it looks lovely. It's terrible when sustainable things have to look ugly as well and bolted on PV. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm against it, but if you can do it right first time, make it look great, make it part of the house. And we've even done some kind of rather funky flat-roofed homes that we had a good reason for doing that. We didn't just do that for fun, although we do quite like to do things for fun. We had to protect views out from the existing park out to the national park, which lies just beyond the boundary. So we had to keep the profile of these homes a bit lower, and we have sold a couple, so we haven't scared the British public too much with those. And you can again, as mentioned earlier, of higher floor to ceiling heights, which we always do on the ground floors of our homes. Bigger windows. I think getting the balance of windows is really, it was that thing was about sustainability and health. I remember the first engineers we ever worked with, he was a real guru of the engineering world, said really buildings shouldn't have windows because they're extremely inefficient part of your fabric. But for that, wasn't that a lovely word, delight, that was brought in by somebody earlier, to get that delight and to get that joy of living in a house and being in that space. Large windows are great. So how do we engage with the consumer? No, not the consumer, the future resident. Well, what we found first off, we had to devise a whole process to enable this to happen. And it cost us way too much in lawyers' fees for a small business of our nature. But we had to set up a whole process, a whole marketing, legal process, and obviously the whole design and construction process. So first off, we wanted to design houses that were inherently flexible and could take a number of different layouts. So that's not only good for the choice of the future resident when we're building it, but it's also good for future adaptation. So that works quite well. So we're really kind of inviting people to come in and work with us. Now we've got to manage that. Obviously on bigger schemes, we've got to manage the customer's expectations, and it's got to be our list of choice rather than necessarily theirs. So it's very much managed by us, but we are prepared to put more resource into that process of working with the future resident. And because those who are buying early, they're with us on a much longer journey. So we have to kind of create a really good experience for them over a longer period of time. But we enjoy that because, you know, we've talked about putting people at the heart of this process, and when we're on site now building those houses that you saw the frames going up, people have bought those. They're already our customers. We're building those houses for them. It does have financial benefits. If somebody buys early on a custom build style, they're effectively helping fund the development of their own house. There are issues with bridging loans and so on and so forth, but the mortgage market is kind of rising to the challenge on all this stuff. Now, we realise that when markets are rising, people are much more likely to make early commitments than when we're in a less certain market since Brexit at the moment. So the ability to get those true kind of custom build purchases on board, I think, is going to be potentially more limited going forwards. But engaging people and getting people to make those active choices and driving the standards is, we just think, is really important. So you won't be able to really see this, but we always provide probably 3 layouts per floor. So we will offer different numbers, potentially on bigger houses, different numbers of bedrooms. We can never understand why once you're up into 5-6 bedroom house territory, why every single one needs a bathroom and a toilet, especially when there's usually only 2 people living in these houses, or maybe they're not there most of the time. So it's actually giving people a choice. Where do you want the money spent? And we also offer the chance of bedrooms downstairs or living space upstairs, and actually the opportunity of mixing the accommodation up more across a house. Once you get to smaller homes, you're obviously more limited on layout choices, but there will always be that kind of general open plan against more cellular living, and of course people to get their choice of finish and upgrades packages. So you can't really see the difference there, but there are options for people to make those choices. To market this as well, we've invested in virtual reality kit. You know, the stuff where you put the headphones on. It all comes out from the gaming industry, and we just find again that that's an incredible tool for getting people engaged with the whole process of how homes are designed and delivered. And I think somebody made the point earlier that actually getting people interested in this stuff is really, really important. Because at the moment we've got this huge housing crisis, but everywhere you go there's people campaigning against more houses being built in their community. So you've got really an industry that just isn't working. They've got a commodity that's desperately needed, and yet a public is out there saying we don't want it near us. And I guess for us, the definition of a successful scheme is, are our residents delighted to be living there? And do the people in the local community actually think their community is better off following the scheme and not just neutral, or most people see it as being worse off because it's more congestion, longer queues at the doctors, bigger problems getting into the local school, and so on and so forth. So we'll also try and intervene in the things that people have been pointing out around food, giving allotments, planting apple trees in people's gardens, just getting people engaged with local food. We'll try and create connections with local producers. There's one scheme I'm working on at the moment where I think we're going to aim to put a kind of community growing business right at the heart of that community. Have it as a mix of work opportunities, therapeutic opportunities, but also being an active green space rather than just a traditional parkland. So these are just some throwaway nice interiors, really. I quite like them. We quite like balconies and roof terraces and stuff like that, just to vary the outside space. The indoor-outdoor connection is just really important in homes. Far too few homes. It's a big effort to get outside. I think it was Pete who was saying earlier, spend more time outside. Well, I guess if you make really nice homes, it does encourage people to stay in, but if you have that connectivity, connection with the seasons, understanding of nature is really, really vital stuff. And climate change has been mentioned a lot. I mean, I think is it the hottest, driest September for 100 years or something, and we've had that, every month this year virtually. So this is that triumphant moment. I was sat in front of my laptop thinking, hurrah, we've done it, and what the hell has happened since? Absolutely nothing, except the Americans are thinking of electing Donald Trump. So that would be good, wouldn't it? So in the lead up to Paris, we made a climate change pledge that we'd do net energy positive. It feels a bit pathetic when Bill's already doing it, and so are those people in South Wales. What was that project called? I can't remember the specific. But what we've got to do is obviously we've got to deliver it at scale and on a commercial basis, and I think that is the challenge. But that's what we're up for. And this is where we're heading next. This is out in the press today. This is an Alford Hall Monaghan Morris design scheme in Southmead, a estate in North Bristol. So this is a Bristol City Council owned site. It's their kind of environmental exemplar, or it was. It's not quite as exemplar as it should be, but we've got time to kind of now build it up. But this is going to be a very high profile scheme down in Bristol. So this image will be out there in the next week or two. 161 homes, and that central street that you saw in the AXO is here. It's a green lane down the centre of the scheme. Southmead is one of those places, one of those slightly forgotten estates. It was built on garden city principles, nice generous kind of sizing and wide roads, and we're kind of wanting to take that on and just try and pull the area up. So that's happening. And then this is actually, we're in competition on this one. This is a scheme that we don't think I'm not saying where it is, but it's down in the southwest of England, but it's a competition where the bar has been set quite high. And the good thing is that nobody else can be bloody well bothered. So we don't think there is a lot of competition. Honestly, you set a design standard and most of them just go, oh, too difficult. So we love design standards. We love the central government stopped doing it, HCA has stopped doing it. We want to encourage the local authorities to do it, particularly, they can't do it through planning anymore, they can do it on their own land. So it would be lovely if we could get this one going. That's the other end of that same scheme. And I guess my kind of thing is, and I think I've used this image before, but we keep on expecting our kind of provincial housing to be better. It's not going to be. We're doing it through the same market system where the highest bidder gets the land. It's usually a volume house builder. They've already paid too much for the land, so they go and build a cheap standard product. We keep doing that, we'll keep on getting the same results. Your question, what can we do to stop that? We're not going to be in a period of regulation for any time soon. I just think we've got to get enough great schemes out there so the great British public can see what good is. Because until they can see what good is, how can they say that that's what they want? Brilliant. Okay.